Blacking in and out in a strange flat in East London. Somebody I don't really know just gave me something to help settle me down and to stop me from always thinking about you.
Frank Turner is the latest UK star to cross the pond to try to make it big in the States. While some notice it, the current British invasion has largely been low-key, with Mumford & Sons quietly becoming the biggest new rock band and One Direction being the biggest new pop group. Not to mention the affinity that the US has with Adele, it proves the takeover is on. Coming over to America with a new album, Tape Deck Heart in Hand, Turner has got a slightly different story. In the UK, Frank cut his teeth in the punk-infused band Million Dead and has released 4 albums, the latest one, England Keep My Bones, cementing the 31-year-old as an up-and-coming star. Turner, who's on a whirlwind tour and is one of the most buzzed-about artists coming to South by Southwest, talked about mixing pop with punk.
I feel like what I do hasn't ever really fit into any particular scene in a way that I'm very proud of and that I think is healthy for me and my career. And you know, I can quite happily share a stage with bands like Mumford, Laura Marling, Nora and the Whale, those kind of people, and they're my friends and we can play together and it works. But I can also share a stage with Social D and with the Dropkick Murphys and bands like that, you know. And I mean, like 2 years ago, in the same year I played the Cambridge Folk Festival, and I headlined a stage at Download, the Donington Metal Festival, you know, and I kind of played the same set of both, and I felt really good about that because I just sort of feel like it's healthy to not be just sort of completely kind of bound to one ship. Do you know what I mean?
With a sound a cross between old 97's, Mumford & Sons, and Bruce Springsteen, but done his own way, he talked about finally finding his voice.
The first 3 albums I did, every time I made the record, I've definitely had specific other albums in mind. Do you know what I mean? So like the 3rd album I did, I wanted to make it be like Born to Run cross with the second Levelers record. And the one before that, I kind of was thinking about Ryan Adams' Heartbreaker. So in that kind of era, I was very kind of like upfront influence, kind of specific. With the previous record I made, England Keep My Bones, album 4, I went into the studio and really didn't feel like that at all. I just kind of felt like I was just making songs. And it was a very liberating moment to kind of go, I sort of feel like I'm now moving beyond just being all my influences kind of crashed into each other. And I kind of still feel like that, and it's a good feeling. And I think that, again, that's one of the reasons why I'm kind of happy that it's now on my 5th record that this stuff is happening.
His new album, Tape Deck Heart, is one of the most heartfelt and honest albums, sometimes a little too honest. There's a ballad on the album called Anymore, which just might be a look at the end of his own long-term relationship, and it still makes him uncomfortable that it's on there.
Yeah, I'm not comfortable about it, but then to me art isn't supposed to be comfortable. Do you know what I mean? If art was all comfortable and if everybody liked everything, then nothing of meaning would ever get said. I mean, very specifically for this record, I have a sort of slight theory that a lot of bands reach either this level of success or this number of albums or whatever, and they become kind of generic because they're too worried about how many people are listening to what they have to say. Do you know what I mean? And suddenly it's like, well, these people are going to listen to it, this person's going to think this. And so they sort of retreat almost. And in a way, I sort of feel like that was the obvious thing for me to do lyrically with this record. So being the contrarian that I am, I decided that what I had to do was the exact opposite of that and try and write a record like it was a debut album and like I was, like nobody would ever hear it except for me, do you know what I mean? And the measure of success on that is the fact that I'm slightly terrified about what some people are going to think about this record. And I do feel quite exposed because it's a very, very personal record. But like I say, there's no point in making art if you're just going to try and sort of be generic and please everybody, you know? It's got to be, it's got to mean something. You've got to show your soul, otherwise why bother?
Turner is in LA before spending most of the middle of the month in Texas, mostly for South by Southwest. Turner's Tape Deck Heart is set for release April 23rd. The video for his single Recovery, some of the footage of which you see here, can be seen on YouTube. Check that out, and we'll also have more from Frank in the coming days and weeks.
Just give me a sign, yeah, just a subtle little glimmer, some suggestion that you'd have me if I could only make me better, then I would stand a little stronger.